Get started. We're slowing down a little bit. Perfect. All right, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly webinar. We host these webinars monthly, and we cover all things related to sleep and TMJ, as well as practice growth in these areas. So if there's ever any topics that you'd like us to cover, feel free to drop them in that question and answer box, and we'll take that note for any of our future webinars. You are in the Zoom with your camera off and you're muted for the webinar. So like I had mentioned, go ahead and utilize that question and answer box, or you can even raise your hand and I can unmute you if you have questions for Frank. The best way to view the webinar, I think, is in speaker view. That allows you to get a nice side-by-side of Frank and the PowerPoint. You can change it to speaker view by clicking the view button in the upper right-hand corner, and that'll let you select speaker view, and that'll give you a nice side-by-side of Frank. The topic today is the ins and outs of the oral appliance design. So make sure you utilize that question and answer box to ask any questions you may have, any clarifications that you may need. Frank is happy to address any of those for you. I know, Dr. Krupka, you were asking if this is recorded. It is recorded. We will be sending out a copy next week to all of the attendees. So you will get a copy of this to reference back if you need so after the PowerPoint or for your team. So live attendees, you'll also receive a promo code for a great educational opportunity that we're doing here in October. So stay around for the end of the webinar and we'll share that with you then. Next, I would like to introduce to you our innovative and extremely talented technician and the president and founder of True Function, Frank Madrigal. So Frank began as an RDA and transitioned to a lab technician. He has been working as a technician for almost 30 years. In 1999, Frank started Frank's Dental Lab as a full-service lab, which quickly transitioned to True Function, which now focuses strictly on sleep apnea and TMJ appliances, and has been doing so for over 20 years. 25, actually, to be exact this year. Frank truly is a wealth of knowledge in all aspects of sleep apnea and TMJ appliances. And over the years, he's worked alongside some of the top clinicians in the industry to develop and troubleshoot appliances, creating efficient workflow for clinicians. In addition to his day-to-day of being the president of True Function, he's always working behind the scenes to develop workflows to consistently enhance and digitize our current products, as well as create new and innovative appliance designs. I'll pass it over to Frank now to share some new and exciting things that are happening with True Function coming up, and we'll review those few things before we get started with the webinar.
Thank you, Trish. That was a very kind introduction. So I won't talk about me because Trish did a wonderful job. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Just a little picture in the background. That is my little California Special Mustang. We recently got it restored and took it to some car shows. And one thing about San Diego, there are no shortage of car shows everywhere you go, different cities within the county. So hopefully one day you come and visit, and especially in the summer, you get to see a lot of really cool cars, all types. I love cars. All right, so we are constantly looking, for evolution of our company. And, it's been 25 years, as Trish said. And so for 2024, our goals were and are to just continue to streamline what we do, to make your job easier, to make it easier for you to work with us, to work on efficiencies in the way we serve you, give you faster turnaround times, improve our quality, and again, to reduce your chair time. That's a huge goal for us. And to develop innovative products. We're hearing what some clinicians are needing or looking for. And real soon, we're working on a couple of new products that hopefully will be out by January. So look forward to that. Super excited. Again, a little bit about True Function. We started in 1999, as Trish mentioned, as Frank's Dental Lab. The name was not very creative, as someone mentioned, so we switched over to True Function, which makes a lot more sense. What is it that we do? And the goal is to make devices that are true to the fit and function properly, and really help your patients get better sooner. And the only thing that we offer our sleep apnea devices, splints, and of course, all of that with more and more digital services. There's nothing else we do. So here is an example of some of the stuff that's changing with True Function. Just recently, we sent out an announcement. We are reducing more and more our, handmade appliances and thermoformed appliances, some sleep, some TMJ, flippers, things that don't quite align with where we're going. We are becoming more and more focused as a company, and that will allow us to really provide a better service and become even provide a better quality and provide a faster service to our clients. So just a little historical view of where we started with our digital, at least with appliances, and then where we are and where we're headed. So in 2013, we started to accept 3D scans from clinicians. We didn't offer any digital products. 2014, I didn't put it in there, but we were introduced to Narval from ResMed. And so we started as a partner with them in around 2014. And, since then, we've absolutely evolved. We started milling our first splints in 2016. And now the majority of our products are milled. We are doing some 3D printed. And by 2025, we're flipping this thing, and this is only a few months from now. This company will be mostly digital. There will still be some products that are assembled or completed in the traditional side, but we are very, very heavily moving to the digital side. So why are we doing this? Well, I think of a time when maybe I visited a restaurant and I go in there, maybe I'm there consistently, and maybe the food didn't, one time I visited, the food wasn't quite the same. And so I asked, hey, did you get a new cook? Is the chef different? I mean, what changed? What changed, right? And it reminds me of a lecture I attended many years ago, where the technician was teaching us, and he said, laboratory work it's an art form. And so imagine, everyone's work is like their own signature. Everyone has their own way of doing what they do. So anytime that we change technicians and they do the same product, they make the same product, something about it changes. It still functions, it still works well, but there's something about it that's different, and it's noticeable. I've had that call. I've received that call. Frank, did you get a new technician? What's going on over there? So the reason we're going digital or more digital is because we want to continue to improve our consistency, our quality, and we can do that with digital. I can tell a computer make it at 1.2 millimeters, and it will do it, and it will do it consistently. And if the patient loses the device or the appliance, we can reproduce the device again, exactly the same way as it was the first time. So we definitely want to create some more consistency and make your life more predictable. And honestly, my goal is to make your job boring. I want, the part of what you do when it comes to oral devices to be so easy that it's like, oh man, this is boring. I guarantee you that you have plenty of excitement happening with other components of what you do, with billing and patient challenges and everything else that goes with treating sleep and TMJ. And if I can make this easy for you, that's one of our big goals with digital. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you probably consider when choosing an oral device. Some of those things are, hey, is this an insurance case? Is it a Medicare case? Is it cash? Then you say, well, I need either just an FDA cleared device or I need an E0486 device. It's a Medicare covered device. Patient anatomy, of course. Then you look at device design. Okay, so depending on the anatomy, missing teeth or crowded teeth or anything else, you might consider a different design. And the other thing that plays a factor is your own experience as a clinician. So, um, if you've been exposed to certain devices, some of our clinicians love a certain design, a certain device type. That's probably what they're going to use primarily. Alrighty, so again, these are the three topics we're going to go over. One is the device types, the titration. So I'll have some videos playing which show you how to titrate or advance these devices. And then the other thing is anatomical considerations, some of the challenges that you might run into, and maybe possibly how to manage some of those. By the way, this past weekend, Del Mar Racetrack opened, and if you've ever been to Del Mar, it's a beautiful beach city in San Diego, and so if you get the opportunity, come on down. You'll love it. You'll love it. All right, so let's talk about device types and titration. And this terminology is shared with or by the AADSM, and we just want to be consistent. So we'll go with it. We'll be talking about bilateral traction devices, bilateral interlocking, bilateral compression, and midline traction. So just keep in mind, we won't have every single device that fits in these categories, but we'll have at least a couple of examples of each. And then, it'll give you an opportunity to see what they are, all are. By the way, please, I did want to remind everyone, if you at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt. Send a message to Trish. She'll be happy to ask the question for us. So anytime. All right, so let's talk about bilateral traction. So the design, most of you have seen it, I'm sure. It is the EMA or the Panthera DSAD, and it's real simple, right? So we have an upper tray and a lower tray, and they have anchors. Typically, the anchors are in the premolar and canine region, and then in the molar region on the lower. So bands or connectors attached to two, and that's how we hold the mandible forward. Typically, this design is fairly compact. So these are things to consider when you're possibly choosing a design. One of the most important things to consider when choosing a design like this is anchoring, right? This device has to stay in the mouth, shouldn't pop off. So this device design requires good retention in these areas. So keep that in mind. Hey, if a patient is missing teeth or has very little undercut, it might be a challenge. So now we can look at, candidates. So I got a few scans coming up, and we can see whether any of these scans, any of these patients may or may not be candidates, and why. So obviously, upper left-hand corner, I love that scan. If you can send us all patients that look like that, we would appreciate it. We can make any device on that. This is perfect bite, perfect everything. So please, don't send us the tough ones. Just send us those. Retention is good. Good undercut. We have our molars. There's no reason why this device wouldn't work for that mount. Now, here we have on the lower left, we have an anterior open bite case. Retention it could be a little challenging, but I believe we have sufficient retention for this device type. And so I don't think we'll have a problem. The biggest challenge will be that posterior spacing. So here's where we might want to consider possibly partially covering teeth so that we don't increase the vertical even more and cause other challenges for your patient. Upper left-hand side, this is going to be a challenge, right? I'm sorry, upper right-hand side. This patient's missing molars on this side. So this may not be the best device type for, for an EMA or Panthera DSAT. So just things to think about. And
And when you
again,
use a Panthera versus an EMA?
yeah, our clinicians choose a Panthera. Typically, they want something that's gonna possibly hold up longer, maybe for a heavier bruxer. Um, the devices can be made relatively thin, both EMA and the Panthera. So typically, now the other thing with Panthera, it is Medicare covered. So that might be another reason. It is E0486. So if you need an E0486 and you like the Panthera design, that would be a really good reason. Again, with Panthera, the nylon, it's extremely strong and fracture resistant. The only time I've seen that break is when a dog chews it up. So that's a really, really good option. The biggest challenge with the EMA would be those elastic straps um, stretching out in time. But the upside is it's relatively less expensive. The EMA is so yeah, two different devices that could be used. EMA is extremely popular, just as much as the Panthera. So two really good options.
Are you designing any sleep devices that include the edentulous areas? Have they submitted the lower left side, if they had submitted the lower left side scan?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're going to go over some of that in the following slides. So yes, we can absolutely design devices over edentulous ridges. The last slide on the lower right-hand side, retention, again, could be possibly be a challenge. We don't have much to hold on to here. These teeth are lingualized, the canines are. And then on the lower, it looks like we're missing a molar on the patient's left. So again, considering, look at your scans. The cool thing about this is I'd say at least 80% of our cases come in digital form now. So uh, when you're doing your scanning, take a look at what, patient anatomy, look at what you've got there to work with. If you have a mouth like the lower right-hand side, making one of these devices might be a challenge. Okay, a short video on advancing the EMA custom or milled. They're both the same. Now, can you hear okay, Trish?
Frank, we cannot hear.
Okay, well, that's okay because I can translate. So obviously this is the EMA custom, and the straps are connected on the sides, the canine and molar region. And I know who did that video, so I know exactly what he's saying. That's the upside. Um, And again, we're anchoring to the canine and the molar area. So replacing the strap is extremely easy. Just slide it off the buttons, just like that. And as you can see on the buttons, they're pointed forward. So there's a little point in the front. So when you're placing the strap, start there first. Start at the point, pull back on the strap, and then do the same on the lower. Now you're going to stop. You place it, and then start at the point, which is facing posteriorly, and then pull forward. Now, it's a lot easier to do this when it's not on the model, but I guess I got a little creative when I was doing this little video. So, real simple way to replace the straps. Straps come in 1 millimeter increments. So, this happens to be a 20 millimeter. If we wanted to advance a patient 1 millimeter, we place a 19 millimeter strap in the device. And again, normally we make these devices to your bite, and typically we would set it with the 21 millimeter strap, which is the longest. Really cool thing about the EMAs, a lot of clinicians like, is the straps can be a little elastic, so they tend to give a little bit more comfort and cushion to the patient when they're wearing it. All right, so that's how you would advance the EMA custom or EMA milled.
Frank, would you like to reshare so we can get the sound for the next video?
Sure. Let's see here.
You'll have to unshare.
Unshare. Okay,
and then go ahead and reshare. And in the bottom left-hand corner, there'll be a button that says
thank you.
share sound. Click on that and then press share again.
Okay, where am I going to click on the sound? Because I was
Go
not
ahead
paying
and
attention.
share your screen again.
Yeah.
And then in the bottom left, there'll be a button that says share sound of that window before you select the window you want to share.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Amazing. Okay, what if it doesn't let me click? Come on, you can do it.
Click on a different, you might need to click on a different screen or window.
It did not allow me to do that, Trish.
Okay, well, then you'll have to narrate.
Alrighty, I'll do my thing. Here we go. Okay, so now advancing the Panthera DSAT. Now the Panthera comes with straps on the side, connectors, and they have a sort of a V shape. So they have to be aligned a specific way in order for the strap to come off. So you can see it there, it's sort of like a little chevron, and you have to rotate the tray, that much in order to release the connector. Same thing on the upper. This connector happens to be about a 25 connector, which is, I believe, 25 millimeters. So if you wanted to advance the mandible, you go to 24. Again, align that little V shape back, and then you snap it right back in, and then do the same on the lower. And that is how you advance the Panthera DSAT. Again, a shorter strap means more advancement. Okay, very cool. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. All right, so we are going to go to a different design type or advancement mechanism, which is a bilateral interlocking. And again, there are several device designs everywhere from the ProSomnus to the Panthera X3, the True Dorsal. Of course, SomnoMed has their own. Basically, what it is the upper tray has a block of some type that typically has a mechanism to advance the mandible. And what it does is it'll engage the little triangle or the fin on the lower arch. So by engaging that, it's supporting the mandible in the treatment position. And if you want to advance, in some cases, you replace trays like with the ProSomnus to advance the mandible, or in others, you use clips like with the Panthera DSAT, X3, or you turn the screw like with the True Dorsal. So different ways to advance, but the mechanism is pretty much the same. And one cool thing about these devices is that they are not hooked together like the other design types. And the upside to that is if you have patients that have minimal retention, so even partially edentulous or fully edentulous, this might be a really good option. So something to keep in mind. Now, the other thing is this appliance design is fairly easy to see. I mean, this is like fitting an upper guard and a lower guard, which occlude with each other. The only difference is, they're advanced. But if you're relatively new to treating with oral devices, this is probably one of the easier devices to work with. All right, so let's look at some anatomy. Based on the description of the appliance designs, we wonder which might be candidates. The upper left is the easy one. This is definitely a candidate for pretty much any device for that matter. So now we can look at the lower left. So the lower arch that's missing posterior teeth, there are only premolars and the scan doesn't go far enough back. Well, this could be a challenge. This could be a challenge. One reason is if you look at where the fins are on that lower device with the little logo, the TF logo, they are typically positioned in the premolar and maybe starting in the molar region. So the scan is short. Now, if the patient can tolerate it, you can simply take a new scan, and the device can't sit on the edentulous ridge. But at this point, if this is all you can do, and you cannot get another scan, you may want to consider a different appliance design. Upper right hand, again, it's a very similar situation. The scan is short. So um, if you were able to get a new scan and extend it all the way back to match the left side, then we could possibly make it. But we absolutely need that area in order for proper placement of the components. Now, the one thing to always try and do when you're doing your scanning, when you have edentulous cases, take the scan as if the second molars were present. If you do that every time, then you'll have more options on appliance design and less headaches, having to reschedule your patient. So just be mindful. If you can do that, make it happen. It'll make a big difference for you. The other thing, real briefly touching on scans, is if you look at our ideal mouth, the best scans that we see and what we strongly recommend is that you take a scan that extends 5 millimeters past the gingival margin. So please do it when possible. It makes all the difference for appliance design.
And how much of the palate would you need?
We don't need more than 5 millimeters on the palate, which is really nice. The only thing to consider is some clinicians will, in the future want to make a different type of appliance that might include the palate. So if you are, if you tend to make more one appliance or some kind of a retainer, then go ahead and capture it. It doesn't hurt, but we don't need more than 5 millimeters past the gingival margin all around. And again, assume you have second molars in there, so extend in the posterior as well. And so the last lower right hand corner, that scan, this is a fully edentulous case. Really cool trick that I learned from taking a denture course, because there's not a lot of courses that teach you how to make devices. So what they did in order to replicate a denture was they scanned the whole thing, the internal and the external of the denture. And so, what I was thinking, well, why couldn't we make an oral device utilizing dentures like they did for duplicating a denture? So what we recommend you doing, if possible, fully scan the denture. Take a full internal and external scan of the denture. Take your bite, George gauge, pro gauge, or whatever gauge you use, with the dentures in place, just like this. And what we can do is we can design models that'll fit the edentulous ridge, and then remove the dentures from the scans. And now we have the space for making the device. So that's a really, really cool way to do this, to avoid you all the extra work of making a bite block and starting from scratch or something like that. So save some office visits and make it very predictable this way. So for the bilateral interlocking design, this is what we typically use for an edentulous case. And the reason, I guess the why, is because they're not connected in any way, there's less chance of the device dislodging. Now, in a fully edentulous case, you have to realize that, depending on the patient's anatomy, the ridge, their bone support, the device may tend to dislodge anyway, and you may need to consider other ways to help them maintain mouth closure. Alrighty, so quick video on advancing the true dorsal. Great. And I might go through this a little bit more quickly, because I think I talk a little bit about the design. So again, a maxillary arch typically has the advancement mechanism. So there's, the screw that comes forward, that little block comes forward when we turn the key, and it engages the fins on the lower arch. Great, and that's how we're maintaining mandibular position. So patients in the supine position, the jaw wants to fall back, but it will not, because the blocks and the fins are holding the jaw forward. Now, if you have a patient that has a tendency of falling open, you can always request hooks for elastics. So that's a way you can keep the mouth closed. So now advancing the device is we'll have a little orthodontic expansion key that you would use. And there are four little holes right in the middle of the screw mechanism there. They're equally spaced, and each of those holes, every time you move from one position to the next. So let's see here. In this case, we're going to move the top hole to the bottom. That's a 0.2 of a millimeter. So you would have to bring that each hole down 5 times in order to have a 1 millimeter advancement. Great. I'm gonna move forward from this slide because that's basically what I did. And so again, well, we'll show it. Let's see here. So that's 0.2 of a millimeter. A new hole appears, and we can just insert the key again at the top and rotate it again for another 0.2 of a millimeter. Great. That's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, something to note is every oral device should come with instructions for you. So look out for the little pamphlet, and which show you, how to advance and how to, take care of it, how to clean it. So just keep that in mind. Instructions for use or IFU should come with every oral device for treating sleep apnea. If you ever need one, please reach out. All right, so advancing the Panthera X3, another bilateral interlocking here.
Frank, before you move on to the Panthera, how much adjustment is each turn?
Each turn from the top hole to bringing that hole to the bottom is 0.2 of a millimeter. So in order to advance a millimeter, you would start at the top, bring it down. You do that 5 times. Start at the top and bring it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that will equal 1 millimeter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do that 5 times and it's a millimeter. Awesome. Okay, so the X3, Panthera X3, super straightforward. This is really nice. It's got the little clips in the front that, again, hold the mandible forward or advance as needed. So the little clip, all you do is I guess you get your fingernail in there in between, pull the clip out. And so what you'll see is each clip has a number. So I'll rotate it to show you the number there. And this happens to be a 2.0. So I believe the clips come in 0.5 millimeter increments, and we'll just snap it right back in. So if we wanted to advance another millimeter, we just put the 3 in it, and really straightforward, really cool appliance design here. All right, so we'll talk about the bilateral compression design. And this is an extremely popular device design because many Medicare patients are treated with this. So again, it is Medicare covered typically, but you always want to verify at the PDAC website. So just make sure that the device is Medicare covered. It is coded properly in order for you to prescribe it if you're treating a Medicare patient. Comes with telescopic arms. So those little arms, they just open and close to allow for some movement. The typical advancement for these, it ranges between 5 and 10 millimeters, and it really depends more on the brand. For example, the True Herps has a 7 millimeter advancement capability. The Oasis hinge, which is on the left, that one goes about 10, I believe. So you have different choices. Again, understand, talk to manufacturers, learn about their product and what the advancement mechanism is, how to advance, and how much you can advance. Um, Great. Let's see here. Anything else on the bilateral compression? I don't think so, unless anyone has a question specifically. Awesome. Oh, sorry, real quick. Why isn't Medicare covered? Well, one of the requirements is for the device to be uh, for the device not to be able to separate while in the mouth. So these hinges, these arms are designed to stay together in the mouth. There's no way they will come apart. You'd have to take the device out of the mouth and undo the little, uh, screws that hold the arms in place in order to disengage it. So the arms will not slide off.
All right, Frank, a couple questions. The older model, the bilateral compression appliances had some issues with the screws, either stripping or the arms breaking. How does this hold up to the heavy Bruxers?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's very interesting because some of our clinicians like the herbs for the heavier Bruxers because there it does allow for some movement. I don't know if you can see mine here, but it does allow for some lateral movement. So some of them like it. Others do have that concern. I would continue to have the concern with possible heavy Bruxers, especially once you've advanced the device, because once you've advanced the device, the device becomes a little bit weaker. So if you have a heavy Bruxer, uh, you may want to consider a different device design. So the cool thing is, I think I will talk about it a little bit more, but the Panthera DSAT is also Medicare covered, and that one holds up extremely well to heavy Bruxers. That's one example.
What's your advice if a patient was advanced to the max and when he was sent in for his follow-up visit sleep study, their AHI was worse?
Uh, Wonderful. You know what? I'm actually going to answer that. It's probably on our last slide. So if you don't mind, I'll show you what you can do.
Okay,
I
well, another
promise it's
question. Another question. Is this the best type of appliance for patients that deviate when going into protrusion?
Yeah, this is a good option. If you, well, I guess I'll ask you a question. Is a deviation consistent, and is that where you want your patient to go, or is your goal to correct that deviation?
Okay, well, we're giving Dr. Moser a chance to reply. Oh, consistent.
So, with that in mind, Doc, I would say just about any device could work for a patient that has a consistent shift of their bite, because from my understanding is and again, every patient is different, and this is where I'm not a clinician from, but what we understand is if the patient is consistently shifting to one side when you're taking the bite, I say the majority of our clinicians keep that position. In other words, they have us make it to that bite. They don't have us correct the bite. In which case, any device would work just fine. I hope that answers your question, Doc. But there,
Cheryl
there is
said,
there is
oh,
a
sorry.
design. Sorry to interrupt you. There is a design, one specific design that I like if you're not sure. So we'll actually be going over that soon as well.
Mhm.
Great question.
Cheryl said he said to advance the mandible on Panthera to increase from 2 to 3. It's shorter straps on the Panthera or on the DSAT question mark.
On the DSAD, yes, on the DSAD, you would use a shorter strap, just like with the EMA. You would use shorter straps to advance the mandible. So if you think about the mechanism, we're looking right now at the bilateral compression. So let's go back a little. All right. So bilateral traction. So think of how they're connected, same as the DSAT. So if we start here, we have a 21 millimeter strap. When we place a shorter strap, this is coming forward. The mandible is coming forward along with the button. So when the straps are connected this way on a bilateral traction device, the shorter the strap, we are bringing the mandible forward. It's the opposite of the other devices. So let's see here. So with the bilateral compression, by making the arm longer, turning the key to make the arm longer, then we're advancing the mandible. Okay, wonderful. Let's see here. All right, so we look at these scans again and say, hey, are these patients candidates? Well, let's start with the lower left. Lower left, the missing ridge. So can we? Well, possibly. We possibly can, even with this short scan. Why? Because it depends on where, a lot of it depends on where the components are placed. So in this case, the components are placed in approximately the premolar area. So we have enough scan data to place the components there. I mean, we're going to compromise occlusal stability, but essentially we could make the device, assuming the maxillary arch has enough anatomy to achieve that. Upper right hand, we're going to have a little bit of a challenge. Again, we're missing the edentulous ridge, so we have nowhere to build this component, and we certainly don't want it to hang out, in the middle of nowhere. So if this for the patient's anatomy and they can tolerate wearing something on that edentulous ridge, you simply take an additional scan to extend it posteriorly, or consider a different appliance design. And there are others. There are other PDAC covered designs that would work. And their DSAT could possibly work for this patient. A TAP could possibly work for this patient.
I'm going to unmute someone to ask the question.
Okay.
All right, Cheryl, you can unmute yourself.
No, he answered my question. Thank you, Tricia.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks, Cheryl. Great.
Hi, Frank.
Hello. Okay, so now edentulous case, we can possibly use this design for the edentulous case. The challenge is with any device that is hooked or connected in some way, typically the Herbst designs, you would use the elastics, rubber bands to hold the jaw together. That may tend to dislodge the denture, so just something to consider. But it could possibly be used for an edentulous case. All right, so I'm going to play a video on advancing the true Herbst, and again, I'll translate for you. All righty, so again, bilateral compression design. And again, it could be true Herbst, it could be someone else's Herbst. They all work pretty much the same way. What changes sometimes is the components themselves, the mechanism, how you turn the key and how far it turns is the difference. But this you can learn from the manufacturer and what their recommendations are based on their components. With this Herbst arm, it's a newer arm for us. It works wonderfully because now instead of a tiny little pin, we use a little wrench. So there's a little square hub on the side there. And so you start there and you move it in the direction of the arrow, which is up in this case. So that 90-degree turn, from straight across or perpendicular to the trace to the top, that is a 1/10 of a millimeter. So that's 1/10 of a millimeter. So again, from there to the top, 1/10 of a millimeter. So to accomplish 1 millimeter advancement, you're going to do this 10 times. This makes it easier for some of your patients that have a difficulty with vision, so some of your elderly patients might have a little bit of an easier time than with the previous design that uses the little pinhole, which you could still use, by the way, on this one. So again, each of these little quarter turns or 90-degree turns is 1/10 of a millimeter. So here, after doing it 10 times, we've achieved a millimeter of space, and you can measure that space right in that area. Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you for closing. All righty, cool. Any questions on the True Herps, how to advance it? All good?
If the metal arms on the herps were irritating to the buccal mucosa, could you replace with some type of elastic band on this appliance?
It would now no longer be a Herps design. So with oral appliance designs, well, let me start over. In short, no. In short, no. The FDA and Medicare are extremely strict about oral device design. So if it is FDA cleared to use a certain type of component, that's what must be used for the oral device. Can a clinician modify a device after it's been made? Maybe. But then the warranty may be void. So, things to consider from the clinical side. At the end of the day, your patient, must be able to tolerate and wear it. But this is one of the challenges. So, Herbst typically comes with metal arms. If you wanted something that didn't have metal arms, again, Panthera DSAT is a good option. Also, the tap devices are another good option. There are others as well on the market. I know Glidewell makes a metal-free device as well. Okay, great. So midline traction. So typically taps, I believe SomnoMed has a product as well, a really nice product. And again, typically with the midline traction, we're most familiar with the taps because that's what we've done in the past. They're engaged and they're covered. So if you're concerned about the arms, irritating from the herpes, irritating the cheeks, then you can use something like this. Nice thing about this device is it is advanced on the anterior, so it can be done in the mouth if you wanted to. But some of the challenges, at least from what we heard, is retention can be a challenge given how much undercut there is on these areas here. These are where we're anchoring the device to in the patient's mouth. So when you're looking at patient anatomy, you want to make sure that there's enough to hold on to in these regions here. So canines and premolars. How do we increase retention if necessary? You could use a thermocryl liner. Thermocryl liner, I think I have an example of it in a following slide. And so that is a material that is thermoplastic. So you put it in hot water, put the device in hot water. It's sort of a milky white color when it's cold, turns clear, and then you could put it in the mouth and it'll remold. So that would be a way where you can not only create better retention, but also if your patient's going through dentistry, during treatment, you can modify that device, that material. It is kind of nasty when patients don't clean it and take care of it, but it's very useful in certain situations. So back to the midline traction again. Medicare covered, does require good retention in these areas. Vertical, it does require approximately 6 millimeters of interincisal space. So something to consider when choosing this appliance design. So again, we'll look at some scans, right? We got some easy ones. Upper right-hand corner may not be the best candidate for the midline traction. And, when I say may not, what I mean is there's no absolute for anything. Sometimes clinicians, you see a lot more issues or detail with your patient than we do. You understand more about their history than we do on the laboratory side. So there might be a reason why you could and would make a midline traction for a mouth like that. We don't know that. We don't understand that. But typically for most cases, an upper edentulous case, especially in the canines and premolars, if there's no canines and premolars, it might be very, very difficult to achieve. Now let's look at the lower right. we have a very deep bite in this case, may or may not be a good option. Why not? Well, maybe because we have about 2 or 3 more millimeters to open to get edge to edge, the incisors, and an additional 6 or so millimeters to add the components. So in this case, we're probably going to open the mouth, somewhere, I don't know, 15 to 20 millimeters in order to create this device. Is that tolerable for this patient? That's for you to decide from the clinical standpoint. Now this, excuse me, this anterior open bite case, this could possibly be an option. We already have our 6 millimeters. Our challenge again is in the posterior. So your decision would be open it enough to cover all the teeth or partially cover some of the teeth, but we do have a decent amount of anterior opening. So the anterior is nice, the posterior challenge. Now it becomes a clinician decision. And one thing I want to point out about that is some clinicians are taught to wrap all the posterior teeth. In cases like anterior open bites, it's a super big challenge. So I would ask that you remain open-minded. And one more scan, lower left. Now, undercuts are not quite great for this case. So you may want to reconsider, or again, you can try the thermocryl liner. It can help with retention. But there's not a whole lot to hold on to. So from the clinical standpoint, again, make a decision. Maybe the patient's worn one before and they're okay with that design and they like it. Why not? Why not?
Hey,
All
Frank,
right, so we'll talk. Yes, ma'am.
would you mind chatting a little bit about the AM aligner materials?
Sure, yeah, in terms of how they've changed or how they're used.
The question is, can you talk about the AM aligner material? So maybe Dr. Curry could elaborate on that a little bit for us. I know True Function specifically has 2 different materials. We have a milled morning aligner option and then a morning positioner option. So you could start by those 2.
Sure, yeah. Briefly, we have a few more slides to go, and as long as everybody's willing to stay on with me, I'm happy to stay on as long as we want. I was not planning on talking on AM aligners, but briefly, we have a milled morning aligner, and that's made from PMMA. So you send the scans, we can make your device. You can also order a morning aligner. It's made of that nice clear plastic, and that will last a long time. It's indexed to your patient's dentition. It fits from about K9 to K9, and it's just a little index, device that will remind your patient where to bite every morning. Now we also have the TF morning positioner, which is more like a boil and bite material. You dip that. Now this one is not made. It's boil and bite material, so it's kind of like that mouth guard material. You would put it in hot water before you start treatment. Have the patient bite into the wafer, and it would index your patient's dentition into it. And then what they would do, again, in the mornings, it's more of a reminder. It's indexed to remind the patient where to put their teeth together. So, 2 different variations. The the morning positioner won't last very long. It's mouth guard material. It really depends on, how well it's taken care of. The milled morning aligner lasts years for that matter. So just different materials, different qualities. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, next question. What's the best temporary appliance to use when the patient's undergoing a lot of restorative dentistry?
What type of temporary? Yeah, there are several temporaries in the market, and most of them are great. I wouldn't have a concern because they're all remoldable. They're almost all remoldable. So 2 that we're very familiar with are the EMA Now, and that is a boil and bite material. Again, it comes with instructions. You put it in hot water, put the trays in hot water. You mold them to the patient's dentition, and those are remoldable. So if you got it wrong, you could remold it and refit it. and that's a really nice temporary device. There's also the MyTap device, very similar concept. The difference is the EMA now has the EMA straps, of course, and the MyTap has the advancement mechanism in the front. So two great temporary devices. If your patient needed a backup or just their device broke, like you mentioned, and it needed to be repaired, uh, it's a really good idea to have a few temporary devices in your office ready to go. So we'll talk a little bit about, let's see, we'll continue no, I think we're done, aren't we? San Diego, again, when you get an opportunity, if you're not from San Diego, come and visit. This week we got Comic-Con. It's a really cool convention, and a lot of interesting people there for sure. Big crowds. All right, so now everyone, I think we're at 5 o'clock. We still have anatomical considerations. Happy to keep going, so I will. If you have to go, I understand, but otherwise, stay with us. Stay with us. Okay, so we're looking at excessive curvus B, and we have challenges with vertical. So what can we do, right? Again, I talked briefly about wrapping molars. If some clinicians do have the philosophy, we want to wrap all the molars, don't want anything to move. In a case like this, if we absolutely need it or wanted to wrap all the molars, there's a really good chance we're going to have to open this vertical tremendously. We're looking at about 3 millimeters on distal of that wisdom tooth on the lower, in addition to the thickness of the tray on the upper and the lower. So in order to cover all the teeth, it'd be very, very difficult. The recommendation would be, if possible, don't, partially cover those teeth, and, to try and maintain the vertical as low as possible to allow for lip closure. All right, low retention cases. What are the challenges you would have with those pop-offs, right? The last thing you want is the patient complaining to you that the device keeps coming off at night. Patient discomfort because the device might be loose. Obviously, that can cause delays in treatment and success. And for especially the younger clinicians, the newer clinicians, is losing a little bit of confidence because, man, if you've got these trouble cases because of retention, man, is this how it is with all sleep devices? It's not, but it's good to know how to manage some of these situations. Here's a couple of examples of how they can be managed. Okay, for low retention, one classic way of doing it is making a device with ball clasps, the classic acrylic ball clasps. That could be an option. Another option, if you have the capability in your practice, is to add composite buttons. So for some of these devices with flex, we can design the device with little reservoirs, similar to Invisalign, where you would the resin, the flowable composite onto the patient's dentition with the device in place. And so now we create little retention buttons. If you have the capability in your practice and your patient is agreeable to it, of course. Another one is, I mentioned thermocryl. Here's a splint. It's actually clear, but it has a thermocryl liner, which is a milky white color. So it's not the prettiest thing. For an oral device, for sleep, it probably doesn't matter. For a daytime splint, it might be an issue. And again, another good choice for low retention cases is a bilateral interlocking design. So just, those are different ways you can address retention challenges. There might be more.
Frank,
All right, so
is
yes,
there
ma'am.
Appliance for patients undergoing orthodontic treatment?
Yes. Some clinicians are having made specifically Oasis Lab Dream Systems. They make an oral device that's specifically designed for that. So they use thermocryl liner, kind of like this, and there is a process for remolding it for every tray. So if you need more information, we're happy to connect you with them. If you need guidance, please let us know. Okay, so low vertical cases. These are very challenging ones. We see this all the time, whether it's for a splint or for a sleep device. How do we deal with that, right? If we were to raise the vertical, we can create mouth breathing, dry mouth, discomfort. What if your patient has a limited opening? They can't open much more than that. We're stuck. So what can we do? Well, consider using materials that are fracture resistant. Nylon, acetal. I forget the name of the material for the EMA mill, the little blue device there, but that again, it's a resilient material that's used for flexible partials. That stuff is wonderful. It's fracture resistant. So if you have those challenges, consider using one of those types of materials. Obviously, again, we can partially cover some molars if needed. And bilateral traction design, I mentioned it because typically those are made relatively low profile, EMA and Panthera DSA. What about a bite shift? Someone mentioned, hey, what if we have a case that has a bite shift, and so for starters, did you expect it to happen? So doctor, you take a bite registration, the patient consistently goes to that side. In that case, probably any appliance design is fine, made to that bite shift. But if you're not sure, or you know what, maybe the patient did shift, that tooth number 24 is offset, and maybe it caused the fork to shift a little bit. That's very possible. If we make the device to a bite shift that's not supposed to be there, then we'll create some problems, right? Jaw pain, a device that's really crooked. You'll see that in some designs. But again, it's from the clinical side. Please verify. If we see a bite shift of more than 2 millimeters, we're going to reach out to you and say, hey, did you mean to do that? Or a lot of our clinicians are proactive. They tell us, hey, there is a bite shift of this much. We expected it. Good. Let's keep moving forward. So what can we do? Well, if you didn't verify, bring the patient back is my recommendation. Make sure that the bite isn't truly shifted, or maybe it is. If the bite can be corrected, take a new bite registration. And another option, if it's minimal, if it's within 2 millimeters, you can ask your manufacturer, you can ask us, hey, you know what, please align the midlines. There is that shift is not correct. Please fix it, and we can proceed. Another cool thing is, again, midline traction. The great thing about the midline traction devices is they allow some lateral play. So they're not really fixating, the jaw in a specific position. So that might be a good design. Whether it's a tap or SomnoMed device that allows the mandible to self-align, that could be a really good option. All right, we got heavy bruxers. Trish, do you want me to continue? Should I continue? Do you want to move forward?
How are we doing? Go ahead. This is almost your last topic, so keep going. Okay, great. Heavy bruxers, obviously problems is broken devices. You mentioned, doctor, you mentioned earlier, hey, the Herbst devices, are they the best? Or do they still have issues with breakage? Yeah, that's always a concern. We don't see it a lot. But it is definitely a possibility. Constant maintenance, if you're making something like an EMA, for example, that's a possibility. Again, delay treatment, right? Because if you have to stop and fix something, or it's constant maintenance, then patient's not advancing like they could. So what can we do? Again, nylon is extremely strong and fracture resistant. Again, I haven't seen one break yet. Acetal, amazing strong, beautifully polished. That's another option. Adding discluders. So I have this deprogrammer here. Some clinicians request discluders on their sleep devices, if those are options. And
if you look at the midline traction device, at least the tap design, there is anterior contact on these. So that is a possibility. Some clinicians will ask for that. And they also allow for lateral movement. So different ways you might be able to address heavy bruxer. I think this is the last set of slides, everyone. And so deep bite, we're over, what are our concerns? Well, again, if we're looking to make a, tap type device, we're probably going to over open the mouth, right? So, or if we have to open it, we're going to make a very bulky device. Will we cause jaw discomfort? Things to consider with a patient that has a very deep bite like this. Again, we can avoid devices that require large anterior openings. We can choose materials that can be made thin. We can consider maybe not covering the incisal edges at all so that we can really minimize the anterior opening. From the clinical side, absolutely things to consider and to discuss with your lab or your manufacturer. So just keep in mind, there's always ways to manage some of this, the challenges that you run into, and that you have a team that can support you with that. The last thing, I think someone asked about a device that's maxed out. Hey, this device has gone at 7 millimeters. Patient still needs to come forward. What can we do? Well, in the case like on this dorsal device, you can, the best way to do it with this type of device is you'd index it. So have the patient place it in their mouth, have them open, inject by registration over the occlusal of the lower, have the patient close into it, and send the device and the models back to the lab or the manufacturer for them to reset for you. If this is, an option, maybe you give them a temporary device while they're waiting for this to be reset. So that's a way to do it. Or maybe they need a brand new device now. This is also a way you can translate that bite relationship to the lab or manufacturer. Alrighty, any additional questions? Thank you, by the way, for staying on with me a little longer.
All right, go ahead and put your questions in the question box while we finish up here, and then we'll address the rest of the questions at the very end. Frank, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next slide for me. Of course, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We're so happy that you were here with us and went a little over. We're very thankful for that. And like I said, we have a couple questions coming in, so we'll address those as soon as we get finished here. As a thank you, we'd like to offer 50% off the next 5 registrations before the end of the month for our Level Up course. We're doing an online course, 1-day DSM course, specifically on all things sleep apnea. You'll see Frank there. Dr. Patel, our clinical director, will be talking about his sleep protocol. So that is coming up in October, and a great way to get a full day of education at a really good price. So make sure to register for that. We'd love to see you in October. If you wouldn't mind going on to the next slide for me, Frank.
Sure thing.
If we can support you at all, of course, in your lab needs, feel free to complete that new account form if you're not already a client with us. We'd love to have you and help you troubleshoot any of these challenging cases and have you have those appliance drop right in. I know a lot of you have asked you about the morning positioners and the EMA Now, and we talked a little bit about the MyTaps. All of that also can be found right on our store. So if you scan that QR code or just go to truefunction.com, there's a store button where you can access all of the kind of products, distributed things that we talked about this evening in the webinar. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we will be emailing you a recording of the webinar, so hang tight. It takes a couple days to edit that, so we'll get that out to you next week. So you'll be receiving that follow-up then. And then feel free to, of course, share any topics that you might want to see us cover in the future in that question and answer box, and we'll take that into consideration as we're planning out our schedule for 2025. So keep those questions coming in the question box, and we will get to those. The next question is, if there are maximum protrusion on a device and their AHI gets worse, it means that they're too protruded to where their airway in the oops, typos. Okay, let me see. If they are at maximum protrusion on the device and their AHI gets worse, it means that there are too protruded to where their airway and being constructed the other way.
Thank you. Yeah, I think they were sharing
Oh.
that with us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If we're going beyond their ideal airway, if we're pushing them too far, then we may be constricting the airway.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Strardo. Dr. Wirtz said, I want to just make a comment. She's new to True Function. She's a newer provider, and she wanted to say every appliance she received, whether it's a splint or sleep appliance, drops right in with little to no adjustments. You do a great job. I'm glad that she's glad that she found you, for us, I should say. Thank you. Very informative session. Dr. Chapman, always good to see you. Not a question. Great topic today and a great lab. I think that answers all the questions then. Thank you all for joining us. We're so thankful for you to spend your evening. We're going to hang tight here for just a couple more minutes. So again, if there's any last minute questions, jump in there. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you at the October course. And if you need anything in the meantime, don't hesitate to contact us, and we're happy to help you.
Thank you all for sharing your evening with us. We appreciate you.